The biggest fear that we all have in this world is missing out on the opportunity for wealth transfer. The assets and the technology that we talk about on this channel, we believe are those technologies that will take us from this financial system to the next financial system. In today's episode, we interview Vandel Al-Jarrad from Black Swan Capitalist, and he shares all of his insights and all of his understanding in the space. This is a must-watch episode. Let's get to it. Vandel, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Lewis. Pleasure to be here.
Of course. And I'm very happy to see that you're here. And I know the audience is as well, because the amount of requests I've had, you need to have Vandel on, you need to have Vandel on. And that idea that I was all the way in Houston, met with your brother and didn't meet you in that trip.
Yeah, I can't believe we missed each other. I mean, I was busy. You were running around with him doing things. So yeah, and you were busy. So,
but what will be unique to you is your viewpoint on certain things. And while I know there'll be a lot of similarities between you and Versan, there will be things that uniquely you think, and we want to get into those things today. I want to start off kind of quite deep, and it's about China and this whole idea of Chinese surveillance, social credit score type thing. I've been having conversations with CBDC experts over this week, and they seem to be looking at CBDCs as overwhelmingly positive, with the idea that China has a social credit score system type thing. How do you think CBDCs are going to go?
Well, first of all, I like to say that it's not positive in any way, shape, or form. There's nothing positive about having less control in your life and more control to a centralized entity. So, I mean, that's obvious. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. And that's what a central bank digital currency is. So the control is to the central bank.
So what would you put in as alternative? Like, what would go in its place?
Honestly, as funny as it sounds, the best shape of freedom and form of financial sovereignty is what we've been doing for decades. It's cash, it's money, it's coins, it's whether it's digital or not, it's you having control. And ever since debit cards and visas and credit cards became a thing, that's when the control mechanism really started to roll off. Because now when you have a debit card or a Visa or credit card, that is controlled by the bank. They can literally already turn it off if they wanted to. They can freeze your account. The IRS can step in and stop money coming into your account, or they could, freeze it if they wanted to. So that's already being done already. And if you have cash or coins or gold or your own money in your own hands, then it's 100% yours. That's ultimate freedom right there. Because if you can't control your own money, then you're living in a box that is fully controlled by another entity. And that's just the fact. So the ultimate form of freedom is cash. And obviously we're leaving that system. Everything's becoming digitized. So how far it's going to go, go ahead.
Would you prefer to have a system where it's all cash and no crypto, or we're moving definitely to CBDCs and take advantage of the bad system?
Yes, you have to take advantage of it, or you're going to get left behind. So we already know it's happening. We know where it's going, So you can either be left behind, or you could get on board and make strategic decisions to prepare yourself. So central bank digital currencies, it's 100% a control mechanism. They want to have full control over your money. Even the head of the BIS has clearly stated this. Augustine, he said that we want to be able to know what bills you're using, where you're using it at, what you're using it for, and they want to be able to control it. And they make it sound like it's such a positive thing because they they mask it with all the positive things behind it, but that's really not the intention there. It's all about control. And yes, most people are going to be okay with it, because it seems that not everybody, but many people in the population tend to just go along with the system and transitions that take place over time. But at the end of the day, I don't see it as a positive thing. It's not. Cryptocurrencies are a different thing. That's supposed to be decentralized. That's supposed to give the freedom back to the people. That's a positive thing. But at the end of the day, I can tell you, the banks, the central banks, the central planners, whatever you want to, whatever title you want to give them, they always have plans in place, strategic ones. They look at the outcomes, they look at different probabilities, and they plan in advance. So whichever direction we're going, they already have a plan set in place. And it's extremely naive, in my opinion, to think that they don't. Because if they don't plan in advance, then essentially they're planning to fail. And they don't plan to fail.
Yeah, that's true. I do believe that if you want to make money, you have to look at where the money is made and who makes the money first. And the central banks, the governments, the large institutions, they're all at the start of all of that. What I found interesting is that in these conversations with people who are actually involved with CBDCs, actually talking to governments about regulating these things and providing the actual technology to transmit these CBDCs, not the rails, but there's very few companies that are actually doing this type of thing, like Swift, R3, the Payments Association. These guys are like,
yes,
they're the guys to talk about CBDCs. And in my conversations with them, it just seems like they don't think, if we look at it in terms of a scale of progression in CBDCs, you've got 0% progression, hasn't ever been explored. 100% means we're using them and they're worldwide. It seems like the vibe is that we're about 30% along that journey. However, when we do the research, and I think we tend to think more like out of the box and futuristic, and this is where it's going, rather than the day-to-day mundane stuff. I feel like it's easy to fall into this mindset where we think CBDCs are right here. They're just about to happen, and we know where it's going, and it's going to happen immediately. I wonder what you think about that, because in those conversations, they definitely seem to be having very elementary conversations about these things. Like, we are so much further in our conversation about it. And I found that a weird situation to be in, to talk to them about.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, and I agree with you to some extent. So obviously they must be experts in their fields. That's why they're involved in the blockchain technology, and they're working on frameworks and systems in place, the technical side of it. So they know what they're talking about. However, though, some people can know what they're talking about, but they don't see the negative outcomes that lie ahead once technologies and certain innovations are in place. So the way we look at it is, sure, it has some positive aspects to it if you're talking about efficiency, maybe cheaper payments, no third parties involved. Sure, those are positive things, but at the end of the day, you got to outweigh the pros and the cons. And you're not going to have the same amount of control over your financial situation as well as your freedom if these CBDCs get rolled out and they're in place. And you already know why. So when you speak to some of these people, I think they're just naive, or they're either thinking about the day-to-day mundane stuff, like you said, and they're just thinking about in the moment. They're just really absorbed into their work. You know what I mean? They're not really thinking outside the box. They're not thinking about the long-term consequences and how it's going to change everybody's daily lives on a daily basis. And talking about the negative aspects of it, not the positive aspects, because I look at everything as you got to weigh the pros and cons. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what are the pros?
Well, maybe it's cheaper to send money. Maybe it's more interoperable or transportability, things of that nature. Sure, that's positive. But besides that, I don't see any other positives.
Yeah, it definitely seems weighted on the side of institutions for the positive effect. I think when we talk about retail CBDCs, and when I was talking with them about retail CBDCs, they were very much of the opinion that they don't know even the right questions to ask about how to handle retail CBDCs. So they were basically explaining how, as you go about a process and understanding a process more, your questions get better. And they were at the stage currently where they didn't really even know what questions to be asking. And I found that quite interesting, because if that's where we're at for retail CBDCs, that's right. We are nowhere near where we need to be to actually put it into place, right?
Yeah, well, you're right. And the other thing is you can excel to the highest degree in your field or particular sector, industry, profession, but you can still be really dumb. And it's the truth. Yeah, there's so many people out there that, they're experts in their field, but they don't ask the right questions. They don't think outside the box. And the reason is because they're trained to do a job really well. They're not trained to think outside the box and ask questions. And many people are like that. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. That's just how they are. So they're not going to ask the right questions, and they're not going to think outside the box and dive into the different difficult conversations that need to be asked, and spoken about. You know what I mean, Lewis?
Yeah, I do. I just feel like if there was somebody or a group of people at the top, this like invisible group of people who were creating a narrative to push things a certain way, it definitely feels like the message has been very slow getting to the institutions. Because I feel like if this was a big plan all along, they would be more advanced in this thing right now, but they don't seem to be.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because a lot of times what we see, the public, even information put on, social media and news, they're way ahead of what they're showing us most of the times. So a lot of times they have things in place, but they don't show you until it's approved and until it's ready to be shown to the public. So the truth is, I'm not saying I know exactly where they are right now through these stages, but in my opinion, I think they're way ahead of what they're showing the public. And I think they have frameworks in place, plans in place. They know what they're doing, and obviously they're just buying time because they can't just roll out and execute certain things. It has to be justified to where the public would accept it. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I think before these conversations, I had overestimated where we were in the journey, but I do agree with what you're saying. Like what comes out in the news is basically the end point of the journey, right? Like there's been a whole process all the years before to get to where it goes on the news to tell everyone. The public are the last to hear about it. I just felt like we were further along in the process, but it seems like we're not.
It seems like that, but the truth is we really don't know. They could have everything prepared and they're just waiting for the right moment. And that right moment could be some sort of event that is orchestrated by different entities, corporations, or governments. But this is how they play the game. They create problems, they create solutions, and they put them into place to where the people are okay with it.
Yeah.
And accept it and want a solution, So this is not conspiracy talking or anything. This is how the system works on a larger scale. We can't just look at the surface, They operate in ways where everything's planned out.
Yeah, it just didn't seem like they were ready. That's what I'm saying.
No, I completely understand. I agree with you, and that could be the case too. I'm not saying I know for sure, but I'm pretty confident that they have some things in place and they know exactly what they're doing. So
yeah. If that is the case, if there is this grander plan, it's considerably deeper and more thought out than I ever thought it was. Because if they can manage to kind of push through a narrative and not even and kind of keep that on the down low, even with these larger companies that are setting up the platforms to do all of this, then it's some incredible legal work, some incredible control, if that is the case. One thing I did notice was that in the conversations, there were certain questions that didn't get answers. And I found that quite interesting. There was like this overall unique awareness of what could and couldn't be said. And I found that very interesting. I don't know if that's because maybe they didn't have the answer, or the alternative is that there's, legal boundaries.
Yeah.
It was very interesting. I'll look forward to hearing what you think about those interviews when they come out. But it's been a bit eye-opening this week, really, about all of this, because I have been heavily on the side of, that something bigger is going on here in terms of a narrative being driven. But either they're incredible actors or they're serious, that they don't know what's going on. So
well,
I don't
some of them are actors. They take acting classes because they have to keep their cool. Yes, it's true. And then many of them really don't know what the heck is going on because they're so invested with their time into their job and their work life, their work and life. So, I mean, think about it. Do you know how much time it takes to really connect the dots and do research and read and listen and make your judgment based on, information and be able to distinguish what is accurate, what's not, this takes a lot of time. Most people don't have that time.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time and most people don't have that. So even some of these executives, depending on who you're speaking about, some of them don't really know what's going on. They probably have a broad, vague idea. They see the direction things are going in, but they don't really know the intricacies of everything and how it's going to play out. But then some of them do. They have non-disclosure agreements. You sign. You got to stay quiet on certain things. You can't speak about everything, and that's typical.
Yeah.
So it really depends. But I can tell you, absolutely, man. They have a plan in place. They know what's going on. They're just waiting for the right time to execute it. And all the news we see is controlled. At least 90% of it is controlled. It's a narrative. Whatever you're seeing is what they want you to see. There are 6 conglomerates that control the media companies. So whatever you're seeing, they wanted you to see it. It's very rare that some information gets leaked. And if it does, a lot of times sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
So
I think what there's been something recently that happened in the UK where we had this an ex-football player, soccer player. He used to play for England. He's a commentator now. He's on a big show that basically summarizes the matches that have happened that day.
Yeah, makes sense.
Anyway, so he works for the BBC, and he said something on Twitter that was on the political side of things, and he basically got not fired, but suspended from BBC because he said something that was political. The problem is that the thing he said he felt was true, which is fine. It actually doesn't even matter what he said. The problem is that the BBC then came out afterwards and said, we're going to reinstate him back. And here's a statement from him about the BBC. And basically came back and said, the BBC is the most fair, the most unbiased.
Like, they forced him to say that.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was,
or you lose your job.
It was completely blatant. It was so blatant that they had said, you've got to say this when you come back. The problem with this statement that was said and how transparent it was that the BBC basically told him to say that is that the BBC aren't unbiased.
Mm-hmm.
They clearly promote ideas and agendas that are not unbiased, right? If you side on climate change and go into net zero, if you take that stance, that's a stance that is political as well. Like if you were biased, you would also explore the idea that global warming is fake, but they don't.
Yes.
They push one narrative. The other problem with this is that it's not a government run, it's not a public thing. It's you pay for BBC, you pay the people who speak at the BBC to be unbiased.
It's a private entity.
Yeah. And so like it just shows that, like you're saying about the conglomerates, like if there's a message that they need to be pushed through, it will be pushed through. And it was very clear in that recent happening as well.
Well, almost everything all the news we see is what they want us to see.
Yeah, exactly. I really do think that.
If they don't want you to see it, you're not going to see it unless somebody inside leaks it out.
And I think it actually goes even further than that. It goes way up these big institutions as well. I think there is very much a need to know basis for some of the things. For example, the way that we're able to connect the dots to say, okay, we have this new ecosystem coming in the new financial system. We kind of already have an idea of what that ecosystem is, but these institutions perhaps do at the top level, but don't any lower than like the top guys. And the idea that we can connect to say these institutions need to transmit huge amounts of value on the blockchain for all the efficiency reasons that we know, it makes sense only that there's basically two technologies that do that have the capability to do that in the first place.
Sure.
Right. And so what you can't say or get an answer from people is you can't go that far into it and say, look, these are the only two technologies that can do it. Is this true? That's not going to get an answer. And it's just so interesting. It's been eye-opening the last few days.
Yeah, it's crazy, but a lot of times they leave hints. So they won't tell you straight up the answer, but there's plenty of information out there to connect the dots. So the more information you have, the more research you have, you're able to connect the dots and paint a clear picture for yourself. And then you use your best judgment based on, probability and statistics and data, information, figures. And then you could see what direction we're going to go in and most likely the outcome. So we don't know for sure, but if you use a simple method like that and just invest your time into researching, you'll be able to kind of know what's going on. You don't need to be extremely, a genius to do that,
Yeah. So what right now, I know a lot of it is kind of doom and gloom. Like we're thinking about surveillance and this is all like negative and it's a terrible world that we're going to be in, basically. What has you excited?
Well, so first of all, one of the things is our investments and what we own, companies, blockchain technology. I truly believe it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And after a certain amount of time goes by and years, that opportunity will not be available anymore. So I see a lot of positive in the future, if people make the right decisions and, prepare properly in advance. Even though there's a lot of negative that's coming into the world, there's still always a bright side to something, the positives. You got to look at it. And for every single person, every family, it's different. But it all starts with your mindset and how you're thinking about things in the future and what you're planning to do. So, yeah, I'm optimistic. I feel like there's plenty of opportunity that's coming, and that is here right now. And you just have to make the best of it. Because if you don't, you're going to be miserable and you're going to get left behind, and you're going to miss out on plenty of opportunities that are presented. So one of them that I mentioned earlier is the digital assets we own. I feel like it's going to be life-changing at some point in the near future because we're very early. And I think we're going to have a lot of stories to share, and I think we're going to be many people that are holding or invested in these technologies and assets are going to be very well set in the future, So we're just very early at this point in time. But at the end of the day, you got to have faith, If you don't have faith, you're going to be miserable. That's the truth.
Yeah.
You got to believe in something, whatever it is.
When do you think we're going to get some excitement back in the price of XRP specifically? How do you think the court case, this date, I don't even know what the date is. I don't even pay attention to it anymore. But do you think something's going to happen? What the price would do in those eventualities? Whether utility would be on or not? What do you think?
Yeah, well, since XRP is a liquidity digital asset token, I think that there's going to have to be a liquidity issue so that liquidity could be the solution. Mm-hmm. And then I think you'll see, I think you'll see a very high price. In the short term, it's really hard to say. The markets are manipulated. They're manipulated in various ways. And obviously there isn't full institutional adoption at this point. But I mean, it's the same path that took place in the early 90s and 2000s with the internet and the dot-com era. In the early 90s, and the same people that were betting against Amazon and Google in the 2004 are the same people telling you stay away from blockchain technology and digital assets. But look where they ended up, because they missed out on that opportunity. They didn't do enough research to see the value that was going to be brought through those companies. And the same thing is applicable in the crypto and digital asset sector. It's just a fourth industrial revolution, and we're going through that transformation now. You're going to have winners and losers. And if you do your research and you use good judgment, you'll be on the right path. But the key is to be patient.
Oh, it's a bit jumpy.
You have to be patient. And I feel like a lot of people are going to lose this opportunity.
The connection just went a bit funny there. That's all right.
Oh, that's okay.
What do you think? Have you heard of this idea? I don't know who exactly has thrown it around, but the idea that XRP is either not from this world, or it was a pre-existing technology that has resurged. So for the second part, the first one is self-explanatory. I'll get your thoughts on that. The second one is along this idea that there have been lots of other technological advancements in other civilizations on Earth before we had this version of humans. And so, like in the previous one, you had the ones who made the pyramids, somehow with some technology made those, and Atlantis and all of those types of things. Then they all died away, all the history got lost and everything. Then we started again. But I've heard people say that XRP, the XRPL, the technology, came from a previous iteration of human. I was wondering what you think about all of that.
That's an interesting question. So I'm not a scientist, so I really can't tell you much, and I haven't done too much research on that, but I've heard that before. And I'm not going to say yes or no, but who knows? Nothing's impossible. I think those are things we can't really have answers to, of course, at least right now. But if that were the case, that'd be really incredible. But I can't tell you. I really don't know. What do you think?
So
I have to ask you, what do you think?
I don't think it's alien technology. I also don't think it's technology from a previous iteration of humans, but I do think there have been previous iterations of human civilization.
Yes.
So I think that we've had multiple goes at this. Some people have survived. It's gone back to like Stone Age type deal, and we've survived and endured, and then advanced again for a new go at it. And I think it's probably been very different every time. Like one of the thoughts that I heard somebody say was that, going back to the pyramids, was that you had there's potential that they had technology that basically used vibration or something to move these massive rocks.
Yes.
Over hundreds of miles. And I can get on board with that. I can understand that, because if they use some sort of like gravity vibration thing, that's a completely different advancement in humans that we haven't gone down that avenue this time, right? We could go down there further down the line maybe, but it seems like this time we've gone the route of like electricity and coal and burning fossil fuels and stuff. I just find it interesting, but I don't think the technology has come over. Not saying it's impossible. It's just not where I stand on that, really. But it's cool.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's an interesting thought. But yeah, it's really crazy. Technology is advancing. I think there's a lot of technology that the public doesn't have access to. Actually, I don't think I know that for a fact. So, yeah, what we see is what we're able to have in our hands and for the public. And I'll just give you an example, but Apple, the company, okay? So you know how every quarter, every year they come out with a new phone and they slowly add to it? Well, I can tell you they're probably 10, 20 years in advance with the technology they have. But from a profitability standpoint and a marketing standpoint, they can't do that. They need to keep you spending as much as possible. So they can't give you the hologram watch where you could see your grandmother and talk to her. They have it probably, okay? But they got to get there to keep you spending as much so they can increase their revenue. Okay. So simple things like that, corporations and government entities put into place. And the other reason is because they can't release a lot of technology to the public because it interferes with the economy. So they have to do it very gradually.
Yeah.
Very slowly. And when the time is right, they release it, little by little. And they make it look like it's a new idea that was just created. It's still in experimental phases, but sometimes they already have it. They've had it for decades or years. So it really depends on what you're talking about.
Yeah. There's a question I haven't asked to anyone before on who's in XRP, because I think we get quite siloed into XRP. But if you were to be exploring other technologies that aren't XRP, XLM, these ISO bucket of tokens or precious metals, where do you think what's next? Like what's the next big emergence? What's a section of this ecosystem that we haven't thought about that's going to be super important?
Free electricity, anti-gravity.
How do you affect an anti-gravity though?
So I don't really talk too much about this, and I don't know as much as my brother does and some of the people he works with and does stuff with. But the technology exists to have free electricity, which is created by gravity.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's something that you could do research on. It's very interesting, and it's actually done. It's been done. Actually, the creator of it was assassinated. I think after the first year of creating that in Texas here. So
interesting.
Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff. It's really difficult to speak about because you don't know whether you're going to get banned, shut off, or demonetized. I don't want to put you in a situation.
I see.
Not saying I know everything, but just when you talk about certain things, it can affect your channel. So it really depends. Okay. But
I thought you were gonna talk about something like AI or something, but no.
AI is AI is here to stay. It's changing the world forever. It already started with ChatGPT, robotics. So if you're interested in investing in some of these incubator companies or technologies, artificial intelligence, robotics, those are here to stay, and they're going to change the world forever. And now is the time to get in and invest and get in early. But you have to be very careful because there's a lot of companies that are, they're not going to make it, and they're not going to survive tough times because they're not strong enough. As for the technology, it's here to stay. Like I said, it's going to change the world forever. I see pros and cons to that. Mostly cons, mostly negative in my opinion, because it's going to change the job market, the economy forever. And they can paint a picture like, oh, it's all great. You're going to have more opportunity. But no, what's really happening is robotics and artificial intelligence is going to replace a lot of the tasks and jobs that people used to do. So, for example, UPS drivers delivering packages, well, I can guarantee you in a few years or less, they won't exist anymore. So for every 50 UPS drivers, they'll be eliminated their jobs, and you'll have one UPS driver, but he won't be driving. He'll be flying a drone. Okay. And he'll be dropping off packages. That's coming. So yes, it would give it would give a great opportunity to less people.
Right.
That's what's happening. Okay. And more people will have to rely on a central bank digital currency, some form of making money to pay their bills and survive. And that's why they're putting all these systems into place. It's not just because of blockchain technology. It's because the fourth industrial revolution is changing the dynamics of the entire world and society.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
So the same thing with the COVID, or that thing that took place in 2020. You can cut that part out if you want, by the way. But what happened is they got everybody comfortable with staying at home and doing nothing. And they start sending them checks out, stimulus checks. Well, see, what they did is they conditioned people to be okay with receiving money from the government. Mm-hmm. It's a social conditioning mechanism. And at the same time, it created inflation, which pinched your wallet too, on top of that. But that's a whole other thing. But what they did is they conditioned people to be okay with receiving money from the government. So on the round two that comes, when it does come, whatever event takes place, and they have to send money, they'll be able to do it more efficiently, and people will be happier now.
Yeah,
because they got it even quicker and faster. and they'll probably get more money too. So it's you see how they make it look like it's such a positive thing, and many people would be happy to just receive a couple thousand or hundred. So they're already conditioning people to accept that way of life.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's the ultimate goal of it, but that's what's happening. So when people do need money to be paid to put food on the table, pay their bills, survive, people would be rather, okay with receiving central bank digital currency or money from the government. And eventually down the road, it will have to happen because the population, I don't even know if the figures they give us are real or true, but one thing's for sure, the population is growing. And it's interesting because the job market is going away. So sure, you get new job opportunities, like the guy controlling the drone, for example, or programming it. Yeah, but 50 to a few hundred people now don't have jobs anymore. And you don't need as many job spots or places for the AI and the robotics and the technologies. You need less people to manage that. It's like a manager. You don't need too many. You only need one or two, So those people are going to need a way to make money. And that's where I see the central bank digital currencies coming in. I mean, whether they call it something else, that concept is going to come. That it has to come. I don't see how we can continue to move into this world where AI is taking over, robotics is taking over, everything is becoming digitalized. And people, how are people going to make money? You don't need farmers anymore. You don't need delivery drivers. You don't need people working at McDonald's anymore. There's actually a company, a robotics company that actually is growing in the United States. And they have systems in place, robotics, that takes your fast food kitchen for your restaurant, whatever, McDonald's, KFC, Burger King, completely automates everything without any mistakes. All they need is two managers, a supervisor and a manager, to make sure it's operating efficiently. So what does that mean? Every fast food restaurant is going to have to lay off all those people. So this is a phenomenon that's going to take place in many different job markets, not just fast food. And it's funny because here in Houston, this was about 4 or 5 years ago, I went into a sushi restaurant in Houston, Texas. And I walked in the sushi restaurant and I was waiting for a hostess. Nobody came, but I saw a light flash. And then the screen said, take a seat and pull a number. So I pulled a number. I was waiting for a hostess to come, but basically what it said is when the number lights up on the screen for the number you have in your hand, go to that bar seating or the booth. So I go to it and there's a computer in front of me. You pick what food you want. It slides out. That's it. And the waiter came to me and he said, "Hi, is everything okay?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "All right, I'm ready to order." He said, "All right, this is how you use the screen." And he walked away. I didn't even need the guy. So, I mean, you see what I mean? You see what's happening? Okay. This was years ago.
Yeah. So I think the thing to take out of all of that is we've got these assets that are going to be used for settlement, which if we're looking at the scheme of things and where this technology begins, it begins with money because the big guys need to make their money first before anyone else does. But when you look further along down the line in the future, I think what you're talking about, AI, the different systems in place in the physical world that don't require people, machines, robots, whatever it is, kind of seems to overlap into Internet of Things, an Internet of Things world that we operate in. And so outside of XRP, outside of precious metals, outside of those hedges, the big opportunities to me seem like it's in AI, but all within Internet of Things and robotics. And I think Internet of Things is like the larger category over all of that. And if we are moving into a blockchain environment, then it seems like if there are specific blockchains or government approved projects or whatever it is that operate within that realm, there seems to be a really interesting and promising place to place some money. That's not financial,
Yes.
that's not advice, but I'm just saying that's how you like piece together these trends and see where it's going and where you position your bets.
Absolutely. You're right about that. Definitely AI, robotics, blockchain technology. But the other thing is investing is one thing that could set you apart from either living a, just a regular life or being creating some sort of wealth for you and your family. So investing is key. You got to do it, but you got to invest cleverly and invest in assets that are undervalued before the herd comes. Because when the herd comes, that's when you want to be getting out, if you are. Okay. But the other thing is, during this transformation and transition taking place with robotics, AI, blockchain technology, besides investing, you need to ask yourself, okay, if I'm going to secure my future for myself and for my family, I need to be investing my time, not just your money, your time. You need to learn a skill set that you can use to make money in the future that's going to be here. Or you need to build a business that services and supplies value to needs of people that will still be in demand in the future.
Yeah.
Because if you're not going to do that, then there's nothing wrong with it, but you're going to be working your ass off, slaving for a system, to the system. And yes, it can turn out very well. Many people, they have a great life doing that. But then again, it goes back to the job market I was talking about. You don't have security. And the truth is, people don't want to hear this, Lewis, but I'm going to say it. This transition that we're seeing take place, this transformation, the whole financial system, the shift, money, fourth industrial revolution. If you look historically, we've had situations like this in the past, but not on this scale. This is completely different. And during times like this, there's always winners and losers. So I'm not going to paint a picture, say everything's positive, everybody's going to be okay. The truth is, you're not going to be okay if you don't invest wisely now, or learn a skill set, or build a business that is going to have demand in the future. So that's the truth. There will always be winners and losers, and you choose your fate. You have time. You have 12 hours in a day. You decide what you want to do with your free time. If you want to have a better life for yourself and your family, you need to make the sacrifice by investing your time into research so that you can connect the dots, put the puzzle together, and then make wise decisions based on where the economy is going. And tailor it to your life. What makes you happy? What do you want to do? But be strategic about it, because things are changing so fast, and I feel like most people, Lewis, are going to get left behind. And when I say left behind, they're going to be slaving. They're going to be struggling for the rest of their life. And it's a sad reality, but it's true. Now there's an opportunity, a window, and it's not going to be open for much longer. And I'm not giving a time frame on it, but it seems we're getting very, very close to implementation for a lot of these innovations and technologies to be put into place. It's happening right now. And blockchain technology, crypto, digital assets, that's just one idea and one way to set yourself apart from a horrible future by investing in these. Because as the market matures as institutional adoption, mainstream adoption takes place, the value of what you own is going to increase, and it's going to change your life forever. I don't like to use the term or phrase, you're going to get rich, which you might, but it's going to give you a lot of leverage and protection for the future. And I believe it will build you wealth if you're in early.
Okay. I can't think of a better way to end than that little ending statement there. I think that's highly motivational. And I think you're absolutely right in all of what you've just said there. We have to position ourselves properly in these times, and it is the worst times when you see on the news, and it's the absolute worst time. Just remember, historically, that's usually the best time to be setting your plans for the future, and putting your money where your mouth is, kind of thing. But not financial advice.
Absolutely.
But that's typically the time to do it. So just look around and see what's happening, and it gives you the answers.
I'd like to say something too.
Yep.
You know, a lot of people that make videos and, you know, speak online, they'll say, oh, this is for entertainment purposes only, right? But I'm going to tell you, on our channel on Black Swan Capitalists, we're not entertainment. We're not here to be monkeys in a circus. If you get entertained, that's great. But we're here to inform, educate, and spread awareness. So that's just the truth, you know. Just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, that's good. And if anyone by now doesn't know Black Swan Capitalist channel, then I don't know what you've been doing. Just click the link in the description, go over and click subscribe. Just watch a few of the videos and you'll know why you need to subscribe in the first place. The quality is right there from the outset and has been there the whole time. So Vandel, thank you very much for spending time with me today. I'm sure we'll do it again, and I'm sure we'll have a meet in person as well at some point in the future. I've appreciated your time. Thank you very much.